Once more to the crossroads we return. What's going on, everyone? Slightly different start to this video because for kind of embarrassing reasons, I lost the voiceover for this episode here. Not sure if it was a Windows update, an NVIDIA update, but everything was working one day and stopped working the next. So I have all the gameplay audio and all the gameplay, but I don't have the voice. So you get voiceover Lokiari today. So this time we're taking out a new formation, Misery's Choir. The Abomination in front, we do need to get one more shrine to finish him out. Then the Crusader, the Jester, and the Plague Doctor. And through this next section, I spend a bit of time kind of trying to decide how I want to play this. We do have Lucretia, our Plague Doctor, being set up as an alchemist. This is because while she could be dancing with the Jester to get to surgeon range, ultimately it's kind of moving the wrong way and the Jester wants to move back forward, so the Plague Doctor just ends up not being a very good dance partner. We also do rename Lucretia, who has been a long-serving Plague Doctor. Thank you again to Advocatus Mortis for naming Lucretia, but now it's time for something new, and we welcome Dobiny from Acidic Soup on the interwebs, renaming the Plague Doctor. So thank you, Acidic Soup, for recommending the name change, and we will see how well you perform. We do end up with a Daredevil Pyromaniac, which does seem like a pretty good surgeon configuration, but alas, that is not what is meant to be here. We are still going to stick with the Alchemist. And this is where the kind of the bulk of the discussion goes. Because I look at all the paths here, and what I want to do with the Jester, what feels right for this formation is not something that has anything to do with Finale. So that kind of rules out Soloist. I just don't trust Intermezzo very much. I still don't conceptually get what it's trying to do. And ultimately, I realized that I kind of just was choosing between Wanderer and Virtuoso. Because Wanderer, on its own, the Jester's Wanderer is pretty good. Like, his base kit is just very good at what he wants to be doing. And, so from there, we were really just looking for, is it Virtuoso or is it Wanderer? And ultimately, like, the challenge, and I wonder if this is something Red Hook will address at some point. I don't know that the difference between the two is, like, stark enough to be worthwhile. If that makes sense. Like, a lot of the skills are changed, but not in ways that make them unhelpful. So you end up sort of like, or at least I end up choosing Virtuoso a lot, as it kind of feels like it's just better Wanderer. Because like Fade to Black and Razor's Wit are basically unchanged. Slice Off and Harvest are pretty good. And you see here, ultimately we kind of go with like the baseline kit. One of the, maybe the real changes are to things like Encore, which is no longer giving an extra turn, but instead triggering the buffs off your other abilities. But that's not hugely different from what Virtuoso's doing. So, I go back and forth here for a while, just trying to figure it out. And then it's been a moment, but I'm pretty sure I end up just choosing Virtuoso. Because again, it just feels like, Encore felt like kind of the real difference, and the Encore's good, but yeah, I think we end up going Virtuoso. I think. It's been a few days since I recorded, and like a professional, I'm just doing it live. Yeah, there we go. Virtuoso Sarmenti. Kane, our Black Templar Crusader, is gonna stick as an aggressor. He really doesn't need a lot more, and I'm quite happy with how he's configured. And I was describing there how really what I want to be doing is just having Cain and the Jester dance a fair bit. Which does mean I need to have Holy Lance selected, which I do, and otherwise, you know, we're in a good shape there. And finally, the Abomination is Unchained, and I have kind of a little bit of a debate here of like, oh, who do I want to bring in here? Because I've done Wanderer and I've done Unchained. I really liked Unchained. That was quite a good run, I think. But you know, we're really choosing between Fiend and Moribund here as the two options I haven't run yet. And Fiend, we do see, is kind of the bleed-centric, or a little bit more bleed-heavy formation, along with a bunch of stress manipulation, which is kind of just the Abomination's thing anyway. And I think ultimately, you know, we kind of bounce between the two. I really don't want to use Unchained again, as good as it is. So, you know, then I take a look at Moribund and see, oh, this is like, how much stress can I cram onto Bigby? Which isn't the worst option, that's for sure. And no doubt I will find information to use that. +4 stress, copy positive token. You know, so that's it's certainly a consideration. And I kind of waffle back and forth. I go to do Moribund. And before we finish that discussion, the Lucky McMuffin requested we rename the Abomination to Kyle. So welcome, Kyle, and thank you to the Lucky McMuffin. Oh, do I choose Moribund instead of Fiend? Maybe I do. I think what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of thinking about, oh, I do end up doing Wanderer, do I? I end up considering, like, we're going after Obsession, so we need a means to take down the eyes, but we also need a way to tank as much of the eyes as we can onto a single person. And ultimately, I decide, I remember now, that the Crusader getting extra turns is going to be plot relevant to that, because he's really the only character who can generate block tokens to mitigate some of the eyes. So there you have it, Moribund, Aggressor, Wanderer, Alchemist. Probably, maybe Aggressor's the wrong call for Crusader here in retrospect, but that's where we ended up. Can always change it later if we really want. I may end up doing that now that I'm looking back and contemplating it. But in the moment, it seemed like the right thing to do. So now, as we go through combat here, which is not, you know, it's the first battle. It's always a little bit easy. But as we go through this, I do want to talk about the formation in its macro senses. So what we have here is a pretty robust formation. We do have a fairly high damage output. The Plague Doctor providing a lot of backline reach and blight. The Jester providing bleeds and fairly hard-hitting direct damage skills, along with some nice debuffs. And then we saw in the Unchained version how much of a house the Abomination can be, and then the Crusader as well. And it's at this point that I realize that Absolution in the Moribund version is kind of selfish, which makes me like Unchained a bit more. Having that spread out stress healing and healing was actually pretty nice. But when we think about our formation, damage, pretty high, plenty of access to dots. Stress healing, we have the Jester and the Crusader, so I shouldn't have to worry about stress. We will see. And then finally, healing, again, we have the Plague Doctor and the Crusader. Plenty of healing. So, Misery's Choir, not looking too miserable, looking quite strong. So at this point, as we land, the discussion point I have is about what kind of run is this going to be? Because we're looking at we're looking at 4 characters that are pretty stable. They're not looking to move a lot. The Jester and the Crusader are at least dancing, but the Abomination and the Plague Doctor really aren't looking to move a whole heck of a lot. So we'll have to kind of think through what we're looking to do here. We do have the Shroud book, so we will be looking to head to the Shroud at some point, and we do have Clenching Claws, which is quite nice. So I debate here for a bit about kind of how I want to distribute stuff. We'll put the Shroud book in, figure out where we're going, and this is where I look at the situation and I realize we have the Shroud book, so going to the Shroud pretty tempting, but the Fetter offers some pretty nice trinkets, particularly for an alchemist. So we end up going to the Fetter here, mostly because of that weight.
And pestilence.
And then Clenching Claws, I do look at it and realize the Crusader can make use of both sides, but ultimately I end up just kind of going with Kyle. We'll find a way to lock Kyle in or reduce his speed. Potentially, but for now, I think that's probably the direction we want to go. We don't have to fight the Harvest Child.
What you can, or wealth no longer.
I do immediately see Stew Pot, one of my favorite early Stagecoach items, and that does open the door to making this a rabbit run. Some pretty good selection here. We do have a pig as well, which is quite nice. The trinkets themselves sort of disappointing, not a lot of interest. And Stew Pot's, I see Stew Pot, I pick Stew Pot.
Yet untraveled.
We buy out the food because we're going to need it. We do have a triage kit as well, which we're going to want. And then this is the pet debate here. What do we do? Could be a crocodilian run. We do have 2 characters dancing, but they're not moving enough. So I ultimately let the hatchling crocodilian go. The tick is always good. But, the tick just sort of feels like one that is, I have to have the right mood for. Rabbit, very appealing. Wolf Cub, Pliskin, Owl. All of these are okay, but none of them really appeal. Same for Slime, Shrieker Trick. And I briefly touch on the Corpse Larva or the Carrion Eater as being sort of the weakest of the pets. And I say that because it doesn't do anything on bosses. It's only really useful in the travel, and that's not super appealing to me. So we ultimately go with the rabbit. The cat, the Shambler pet, just not worth it. I don't think not what I want to do. An early Stew Pot, early rabbit. It does mean we're kind of giving up on the whole speed manipulation thing, but that's fine. So Stew Pot locked in. Combat items aplenty. Distribute our food and get some positive ticks, get everything moving in the right direction. And the Harvest Child looks like it might be a scary fight, but we're gonna kind of power up and make it happen. And I believe we just saved the poetry, yeah. Mastery points, just kind of a consideration of, what do I want to do here? And ultimately, we are aiming to go after the Harvest Child, so we probably want to upgrade the tools to help us make that happen. Which, drawing a blank on which ones I picked here. I do think, I picked Battlefield Medicine. That's always just a strong early upgrade. Heals for more, and more importantly, gets rid of the damage over time effects. I think it heals for more. It definitely moves the threshold. And then I think we ultimately, with the other one, is it Fade to Black I upgrade? I think about stress healing. Think about the other heal. Then I think it's just fade to black. More combo points and more blinds. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, we'll see you in the Fetter.